Hello everybody, I'm Abasud and today we are going to discuss about the SAP audit of basis and security. So basically basis and security modules, what are the things we need to look into basis and security if we are going for the SAP audit. So first thing is secure production client. So what it means that changes should not be allowed directly in the production client and SAP settings should be configured to prevent any such changes. Allowing changes directly into the production client could lead to changes that are not fully tested or even unauthorized changing during an audit. The auditor will likely want to view the production client setting, which can be obtained through transaction code SCC4. So if we go to a transaction code SCC4, there are multiple settings that we need to check. One is there is client role, so the client role should be production. The second is change and transport for client specific objects, it should be no change allowed. The third thing is cross client object changes, so it should be no changes allowed to repository object. The fourth change is protection, that is client copier and comparison tools, so the protection level should be 1 where the no overwriting is allowed. Then fifth thing which we need to look into is cat and ecat restrictions, which should be ecat and cat not allowed. And also we should look into who has performed the changes and when the changes has been performed, and where is the request for that particular changes, and why that particular client has been open to perform the activity. This is one thing. The second thing which we need to look into the enabling the table logs. So as we want to see the configuration there, it may possible it got changed, so the table logging should be enabled for table 3000, so that we can check who has did the changes in client settings and why the changes has been done. The next is the profile parameters. So default profile parameters should not be there. So several of the security parameters providing by SAP as default settings are typically not appropriate for many organizations and should be changed. This security parameter related to password requirement, action that SAP takes on invalid login, and other such criteria. The right setting for your organization will depend on your industry, your regulatory requirement, and your own security policies. So how can we get that particular report? We can use a report that is SRS param to just get the detail of what are the parameters has been set. So there are number of parameter which begins with login backslash. So each of these parameter control the specific security setting, many of which are of interest of an auditor. For example, if we talking about the parameter something like minimum password different, so it talks about minimum number of character with which differ between old password and new password. So it's saying the old password and new password should not be same, and how many characters should be different. So minimum password digit, so how many number of digits should be in the password. Minimum password letter, which is minimum number of letters in the password. Minimum password length, minimum length of the password. Then minimum password uppercase, minimum password special character, minimum password lowercase. Then multiple login users. So there are many parameters which a auditor should check and then cross check corresponding to the policy and as per the standard market standard. So as we are saying, by default, if we look into these parameters, the value for the minimum password digit is 0, the minimum password length is 0, and many other such type of configuration. So it should be changed as per the requirement. The next is defining restrict password lists. So we should be defining, like there are passwords like password as a password should not be allowed because it is a weak password. So that type of list should be maintained in USR 40. So that list should be reviewed by the auditors. The next is limit access. So this is not surprising. Access to the sensitive tables, transaction and report will also be on the auditor radar. As such, security should restrict access to SAP customizing table, prevent unauthorized changes to SAP's data dictionary, and be set to provide other similar function. The next is change default password. So if we go to our next slide, sorry, change default password. So basically it's saying there are some power user accounts and default password for initial login. It should go without saying, but these default password should be changed to prevent the risk of unauthorized access. So at minimum the password of the following IDs, so that IDs are SAP star, DDIC, SAP, SPIC, early watch, TMS admin. So it should be changed. The next we are restrict access to the power roles, whatever the powerful roles, super user roles, that should be restricted access. So basically it is recommended not to provide these roles to anybody. If you want to give the access, create and customize role and then give it to that. So some of those roles are SAP underscore all, SAP underscore new, SAP underscore a dot user, SAP underscore a dot admin. Then other is ensure role name is accurately described. So what it say, when defining a new security role and profile, the name should be appropriately described. The role or profile are not misleading. An auditor will raise a large red flag if he finds name that are not reflecting the actual role capabilities or profile, because it raised the concern that someone may be intentionally attempt to mislead the security review. And the next is the locking the sensitive transactions. So here we are saying whatever the sensitive transaction like SCC 5, SCC 1, SCC, you can say SCC 8, SCC 7. So by default, and there are many other transaction, it should be logged. We can log the transaction using the SM01, basically T code, or for the auditors there is a report that is RS Audit C, that is RSAUDITC, is typically where the auditors will look for this information, like the sensitive transaction has been logged or not. So last is the SOD metrics review. So whatever the SOD rule set has been defined, they can review those, is it properly configured, or all the users are created as per the SOT metrics or not. So in both the cases, if you are having an automated tool like SAP GRC, access risk analysis, or even if you don't have such thing, you should be maintaining a manual sheet, while so that while assigning the roles, while giving the authorization, you will refer those particular sheet, so that SOD conflict can be removed. So this is what we'll look from the point of view of SAP basis and security. Thank you for joining.